Gymnastics is now filing for bankruptcy tonight after facing 100 lawsuits from the Larry Nassar sex abuse scandal.
It's been complete chaos, and this organization is just, its wheels are stuck in the mud.
What you see may change your perception of any sporting event. Get this, shoot this.
Welcome to Outside the Lines. I'm Ryan Smith. A major exclusive announcement in the world of football coming from Heisman Trophy winner Ricky Williams. He's going to join us in studio in just a few minutes. But first, another Longhorn in the headlines. Kevin Durant on playing with LeBron James. That is our big story. You know, Laker fans always dream big, and sometimes it works out, like with LeBron, and sometimes, well, there's Kevin Durant. Laker fans were hoping Durant would pair with LeBron in La La Land when he becomes a free agent this summer. After all, didn't they look great together in that video where Kerry Champion drove them around the streets of Akron? But sharing a car ride and sharing the ball are two very different things. In a Bleacher Report article about why some stars might balk at playing with LeBron James, Durant said this: "It depends on what kind of player you are. If you're Kyle Korver, it makes sense. He's not a #1 option at all, not even close, so his talents benefit more from a guy who can pass and penetrate and get him open. If you're a younger player like Kawhi, trying to pair him with LeBron James doesn't really make sense." Durant noted that Kevin Love and Chris Bosh had to significantly alter their games to play with LeBron, and he offered this about the Kings' never-ending stream of media attention. "So much hype comes from being around LeBron from other people. He has so many fanboys in the media. Even the beat writers just fawn over him. I'm like, we're playing basketball here, and it's not even about basketball at certain points. So I get why anyone wouldn't want to be in that environment because it's toxic." Now, LeBron, when asked about Durant's comments last night, wasn't going there.
I believe that's probably not the whole quote, so I'm not going to comment on that. You know, I would love to see the whole transcript of what was asked of him, the context that was asked of him, why it was asked, and the whole thing. So I'm not going to comment on it because I'm not knowledge. I don't know the whole thing. That would be stupid on my part. I'm a veteran.
We've all got questions. He's got answers. Let's welcome in Brian Whithorst, host of the Hoop Collective podcast. All right, Brian, you know, with KD, you don't know if he's being direct or if there's something you need to read between the lines. What do you think is really going on here?
Well, honestly, Ryan, I think Kevin is right. I think that for star players, there is a tax that you give when you play with LeBron. For the most part in his career, there's been a payoff for that tax. The guys who have had to deal with extra scrutiny and maybe had to change their games a little bit have benefited by getting a chance to play for championships, by winning rings. And the thing about it is, when it comes to Durant, his viewpoint may be different than a player like maybe Anthony Davis, who has never won a ring. Durant has multiple rings. He doesn't look at playing with LeBron the same way. And when he talks about Kawhi Leonard, that's another man with a ring and a Finals MVP who doesn't have to validate himself. And so, well, I think it's dangerous to speak for Kawhi ever because I think he's a very complicated guy, one of the most complicated stars I've ever seen in the NBA. I do think that there's reason for that. And I also think it's nuanced, though. I don't think it's black and white. I think it varies. You know, I had this conversation with Kevin Love just a couple of weeks ago. I said, if somebody called you up next summer, a star player, and said, would you want to play with LeBron? Would you, should I do it? Do you recommend it? And Kevin said, you're going to have bad nights, but you're going to have wonderful memories. And if you've already got great memories, I don't know if it's worth the bad nights, and I think that's a fair point.
That's a really good point. And, you know, something else that I saw in Kevin Durant and what he said was he talked a lot about young players. I think people wanted to make the jump of, oh, Kevin Durant wouldn't want to play with LeBron James. But what do you think about that? Based on his comments, what do you think is the likelihood that he would still want to play with LeBron James, or if that could still happen?
So, Ryan, I took two things away from this. And let me just qualify this by saying that I have a rule when it comes to free agency that you really can't make assumptions in anything leading up to it until you get to the end. But having said that, my takeaway from this was Durant does not intend to come play for the Lakers with LeBron. And that if he does go somewhere, he may want to try to recruit Kawhi Leonard to that place. Now, I don't know whether that would be the Clippers. They've got 2 max slots. I don't know if that would be New York or somewhere else, but I took away from that, wow, KD's been thinking about how Kawhi may want to play next year, and that makes me scratch my head and wonder what's going on. Those are the two things I took away from it. And I think if I were the Lakers, certainly you're going to make the call to KD, but I would maybe knock him down a list because I think he just sent out a pretty strong message. That's not what he's looking for.
Okay, so now I have to ask you, how do you think once LeBron has a chance to read the context of all this, What do you think his attitude is going to be? Will his feelings be bruised in a way? Guess I have to ask.
Well, I don't think if you can bruise LeBron's feelings, I'd like you to show me to do it because he's been pretty battle-hardened at this point. LeBron was giving an answer there because he knows that sometimes things are taken out of context. He was doing Kevin a favor, but also he's been put in this situation before. I think he knows that getting Durant would be a long shot. He did call him last summer, Ryan, and say, hey, just checking in to make sure you're re-signing with the Warriors, right? And I think he would put that call in again. But I think when the Lakers honestly look at it, I think that their best opportunity, in all honesty, to get a top 5, top 7 level player is through trade with Anthony Davis. I think that's the play they need to make. I think that's the guy who fits. It's obviously a lot more complicated than just offering a guy a piece of paper. But if I had to bet and looking at those top guys, and I think the top guys are Clay, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, I don't see the Lakers in pole position with any of them. I see a trade possibly for Anthony Davis in a year.
So one more thing here. We remember a couple weeks ago, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, that whole thing about, oh, you'll be a free agent soon. Was this maybe a way to sort of soothe some of those feelings about his impending free agency by saying, look, guys, I'm not going to L.A.?
See, I don't know. I'll default to LeBron because I don't know when this interview took place. Some of the interviews that Rick Bucher did in that took place way back in early November. So, Ryan, I would have to see the full context and the full transcript and the dates to know that answer.
I love that answer. And you know what they say about assuming. I'm not going to go into that right now, but you know.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Brian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Turning now to USA Gymnastics, they are once again in the headlines, electing to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on Wednesday. Now, according to their board of directors chairman, the move is a reorganization to help resolve civil lawsuits related to the sexual abuse perpetrated by former National Medical Coordinator Larry Nassar under the guise of medical treatment. We owe it to the survivors to resolve fully and finally claims based on the horrific acts of the past. But defense attorneys involved in the case say the bankruptcy move will halt scores of legal cases filed against the organization while the bankruptcy proceedings play out. For a deeper look at this story, we welcome in John Manley, lead attorney for the Nassar survivors, and former USA gymnast Jeanette Antolin. Jeanette, let me ask you, first off, what was your reaction when you heard this news of USAG declaring bankruptcy?
Well, they tried to spin it as they were doing it for us, the survivors. But the reality is they're just trying to continue to cover up and hide whatever evidence that they have against themselves. So it's frustrating because they try to spin it like it's for us, but everything they've done is for themselves.
John, I have to ask you, you've said that this was a delay tactic. How will this bankruptcy filing affect your clients?
Well, it stops our investigation in its tracks. The timing of this filing is no accident. We were on the precipice of really getting important depositions, important documents that no one's obtained. The Michigan State Attorney General has done a thorough investigation. Michigan State's had to produce lots of documents under the Michigan State Freedom of Information Act. But we don't have the truth with USA Gymnastics. And the USOC and USA Gymnastics has hidden it as a matter of policy and practice. They've just stonewalled these women. They're not trying to help them. They're trying to hide it from them and hurt them.
So what's the next step for you to try to get this information?
Well, I've been through probably 20 Catholic diocese bankruptcies and religious order bankruptcies. So I unfortunately know the bankruptcy courts very well. We've got a great team of bankruptcy lawyers that are now going to represent us, and they think they're winning. They've stepped into a pile of something that I won't say, and they're not going to get out of it. And we will fight for these ladies, and these women will fight until they find the truth.
Jeanette, I have to ask you, at this point, with everything that USAG has been through, with them going through, what, now 3 CEOs within a year, this bankruptcy proceeding, do you think that USAG at this point is capable of protecting athletes?
They're 100% not capable. They've tried time and time again to replace the CEO that's worthy of the organization, and they've failed miserably. They have no idea what athletes need for protection, and they've proven that to us. Once again, with this bankruptcy, it's like they say that they want to help us survivors heal and move forward, but what they don't understand is for us to heal and move forward is finding out what really happened. and they're not willing to give that to us.
Jeanette, I have to ask you, there's a backdrop to all of this. I think as a lawyer, you could say, well, I can understand why USAG wouldn't want to connect directly to athletes, but what happened here was so heinous. I have to ask you, has there been an effort to really communicate with the victims, to really talk, to really try to figure out how everyone can move forward together, despite the fact that the civil lawsuits and things like that are out there?
Not at all. Us as survivors have talked face-to-face with some of the former CEOs of USA Gymnastics, telling them that we wanted to help in the restructuring of USA Gymnastics. We had ideas. We wanted to help in any way we could to help protect USA Gymnastics, the athletes, and everybody involved to create a better future. But not one time did anybody reach out to any of us to ask for our advice. Anything. So really that says to us that they don't want to hear what we have to say. They could care less, and all they're trying to do is cover themselves.
That's stunning to me. I understand the litigation perspective, but still, that is stunning to me to hear that. John, I have heard it said before that if USAG eventually comes to a settlement with victims, that it will be paid for with insurance. Is there still a possibility to reach some sort of settlement even while this bankruptcy proceeding is going forward?
Yeah, but I mean, the problem is there are now over 350 victims, and USA Gymnastics has managed to deplete itself over the last 2.5 years. They started out with $40 or $50 million in revenue in their accounts. They started with tons of sponsors, and their behavior in treating these women so poorly and hiding it has killed the organization. And it's not just the survivors that are at risk, it's our athletes. Our survivors care about this sport, and the people in charge have just decimated. So there's always a possibility, but it's not going to be USA Gymnastics alone. The USOC is going to have to get involved. And frankly, in our cases, all roads seem to be leading to Colorado Springs, and I think that's one of the reasons that USAG filed, is to stop the connection between USOC, Larry Nassar, and USAG from being exposed publicly. And what we really need is the Congress and law enforcement in Indiana to step up. No one in Indiana has ever even served a search warrant on USA Gymnastics offices. No one's investigating them except the Attorney General civilly. Why not? There's been tons of indictments in Michigan, and no one in Indianapolis has even talked to them. That's stunning. And it turns out Steve Penny's best friend was the chief child abuse detective. This whole thing smells, and we need help. We need Americans and our Congress, who created this USOC and USA Gymnastics, to act to reform it, because they're incapable of doing it themselves.
I tell you, one thing that is definitely needed is for the victims to come first, and you wonder if that is happening here, as you both have said. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it. Well, coming up, former Heisman Trophy winner Ricky Williams joins us to talk about the tight Heisman race, and he's got an exclusive announcement right here on Outside the Lines.